All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CEO channel. What if the difference between a forgettable launch and a nine-figure raise came down to a driven playbook most founders never even see? Today, I'm sitting with the guy who's used the exact blueprint to scale 500 plus crowdfunding campaigns and driven nine-figure results. This is my man, Jason Fishman. How are you? Welcome to the Go for CEO channel. How are you?
Doing great, John. Excited to be here. Been looking forward to it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, look, we always love to hear kind of the ideation stage and what led you to the entrepreneurial side, and did you have some background of family? Were you in the business kind of as an entrepreneur, as I love to affectionately call it, when you're working for someone? But tell us that story, the beginning story, and then we'll get into all phases of the business and what you've been able to do and achieve.
Yeah. Growing up, I always knew I'd be an entrepreneur at some point. Even getting into my career path, it was really a feeling of, hey, I need experience. I need to know what I'm doing. You're starting with entry-level jobs in school, I'm working in the hospitality industry. Afterwards, I come on board as a marketer. I grew up in Southern California. I started as an action sports consultant, snow skate surf. I knew that industry. Began working on other accounts that targeted millennials. It was actually called Gen Y at that point, but millennials. Was part of a social gaming startup. Merged with an advertising, say they merged with an advertising sales firm, and I ended up building a mobile ad product and working with a lot of Fortune 500s. Again, knowing, hey, I need to really understand what I'm talking about on the advertising side, and I did. I worked with a full spectrum of different brands, budget levels, timelines, product categories, you name it. I was at least speaking with them, if not working with them, if they were a brand back then and was then asked to form DNA, to partner in DNA with our COO. DNA I built as a growth marketing firm and wanted to be part of the startup ecosystem here in Los Angeles, had some experience, from that social gaming company and said, I want to be able to not just be one of 100 vendors on, let's say, a telecom campaign and told, hey, good job, we'll consider you for the next RFP. I wanted to be part of the growth of these companies. So started a growth marketing firm, quickly found fundraising to be a common theme, a common initiative, was able to leverage advertising data partnerships that I had to reach high net worth, high household income audiences with ad campaigns. Saw success on our first capital raises using digital marketing and could get into, how that's allowed when those laws opened up, how they evolved from accredited investors to include retail, include everybody. But basically saw success there, was introduced to more issuers, companies issuing shares. And as you mentioned, to date, have worked on over 500 of these, many of the top capital raises using these formats to date, and haven't looked back.
It's always interesting, right? I love the mindset that you had because you cultured some sort of development in yourself first
Yes.
before launching, right? A lot of people sometimes, they feel like, oh, I could do this, so I could just become it, right? You got to be, do, have, right? So,
Yeah.
building that system, that process for yourself, and creating, that knowledge base. Look, your industry is pretty interesting. A lot of us that sit outside of the ecosystem go, holy cow, like what are they doing there? And where are they getting all this money? And how do they raise that stuff? So it's interesting. From that beginning part with the gaming company, how were you involved with kind of knowing some of these steps then? Were you in that intricate meetings? Were you kind of visually seeing and taking notes, mental notes, or even physical notes of what you were looking to do in the future? What was kind of that story, just to go back a little bit?
Yeah. I was part of those initial whiteboard meetings, four of us in the room, and we were looking at comparables. So there were social game companies like Zynga, who were publishers of Farmville, Mafia Wars, and basically took that model and said, "Hey, we want to do branded entertainment." So taking actual licenses, let's call it, films, uh, individual actors, athletes, sports teams, and create freemium games out of it to be played on social media where a player is sharing with its audience. And something that resonated with me was the average revenue per user. That's what the model was built upon. And utilizing, leveraging traffic channels to determine the arbitrage model of, hey, how much do we need to pay to get a new user? What is that user worth to us over time? What is the monthly active user level? What does that make the lifetime value of each user we're bringing in? And as a numbers guy, that really resonated with me. Of okay, if I could figure out how to get these people in and the cost structure makes sense, with advertising, I could scale it up and intentionally. And that's the same thing I've taken to our campaigns. Also, that's what taught me more or less about capital raising, where we had a $3 million seed round. I had to personally create over 75 versions of the deck. We were talking to, all different prospective licensed partners here in Los Angeles, speaking to entertainment groups, go figure. But there was a lot of inefficiencies, and I thought back to it quite a bit. There's things that worked and panned out, things that didn't. Even led to the demise of that company at one point, and the advertising side, the advertising sales firm. We basically did our own thing. I was moved over to there after the merger, and we did our own thing. The founder of that company had a nine-figure exit. So I said, hey, I want to learn everything about advertising. We're doing this user acquisition model, moved over there, but that's what really primed me down this path, both for the capital raising and understanding, how to really launch something successfully.
And you mentioned a key word there, the freemium model. I
Yes.
think a lot of people don't really realize what that conversion, that stage of conversion is with these users, right? So can you go a little bit deeper on that philosophy? Like, okay, well, you're bringing someone in for free,
Yeah.
but then you got some other back end mechanisms creating revenue, and you got to float the company somehow, right? So you've got these investors, and you've got a burn rate, and then you've got all these things going on. So help share kind of I don't think I've actually had this conversation on the Go SEO channel. So stay tuned. Can we listen to Jason's wisdom here? What does that look like? How does that feel? Because freemium to paid or looking at other mechanisms is pretty intriguing in that sense.
Yeah. So it's been a little while. I may mess up the numbers a bit here, but it was an important stage of my path. Uh, Basically, we were looking at the percentage of users that would make digital purchases within these games. The games were free to play, but your level of play would be accelerated if you purchased virtual goods. Again, not mandatory. So maybe 5% of users were purchasing uh, different accessories for their character, different digital goods that would allow them to complete a task quicker. So, uh, let's say it was a Farmville type game. To tend to the field, you would take an action and have to wait hours. Instead, if you're buying these points, it would be done immediately.
Uh,
So, only makes sense depending on your resources, being able to purchase these virtual goods. Again, only 5%, but if they're spending an average of $20 a month and you're seeing a 50 cents average revenue per user per month, you can then look at how many users you have and project, upon 50 cents per uh, how much revenue is going to be coming through. Now,
mm.
not speaking to the games I was working on, but in general, some of the top social games had over 200 million users a month. So, you see 100 million in revenue coming through a month from a digital game or collection of them. Okay, that's real revenue. And then what you're doing from there to drive those users gives you a lot more ability, being able to calculate the lifetime value and say, all right, if someone's with us for 3 years, if someone's with us for 10 months, if someone's with us for 3 months, if in the first few months this is what they spend, and you're building these models and saying, hey, even just off, $5 as a value, how can we bring these users in for $2, for $3, for anything underneath what that LTV, that lifetime value is going to be, because then
Mhm.
we could start bringing them in mass from these traffic channels. And what we find is peer-to-peer marketing takes it to the next level. So if you're bringing in one user and it equates to five new users, particularly on these social games, they're addiction models. They're the same type of engineers that are working on Vegas style casino games and bringing people back and back and back and spending more time. The social sharing components, particularly at that time, I mean, we're talking 2011, you'd get a notification that, hey, your friend from college wants you to take these actions on their farm, or join this game, and it just kept spreading. So social proof, social sharing really is what the internet is built on. And we found, if we're paying for 10% of the users, 20% of the users, and more are coming on top of that, we can really take it to the next level and spend these massive amounts on marketing, uh, not as a loss, not as an expense, but as a growth mechanism.
Wow. I feel like I got a little mini masterclass there. To be honest, I'm one of those rare breeds, so I'll be transparent. Never once played any one of those games. In fact, to date, I've never once even ordered an Amazon product. So I
Really?
let my wife order it because I feel
There
like
you
every
go.
day I have boxes at my house. But
Sure.
it's interesting, right? I don't know what it is. I never got into it, and but it's so interesting to kind of create an ecosystem out of nothing, right? Out of creating something that's enjoyable, and then finding ways for that person to interact with the revenue model based on the fact that you're simplifying their life in that game, right?
Hmm.
It's pretty cool. I kind of equate it, I guess. Right now, I use an AI tool to clip these interviews. And just recently it said I was out of credits. I'm like, no, no, I can't be out of credits. I got to upgrade. So I upgraded from the paid version. Well, I had freemium before, then I paid, and then I had ultra paid now. So as the podcast has grown, so it's an interesting kind of dichotomy of those two worlds and showing that. So, well, let's jump into kind of what you've been able to be a master of, right? 10,000 hours of what you've done, and so cool to be on the crowdfunding side. The only experience I have is a game boarding business as a commercial banker myself. Ran into a company that was looking for some funding, but he went the crowdfunding route for a game board called Raccoon Tycoon, I believe it was.
Okay.
It was interesting. I'd never even thought of this way of raising capital, so I'd love to get into kind of now you transition, you have this learning experience, you built your kind of foundation. Let's get into your business and what you were actually doing to then now start, everything that you've been able to build.
Yeah. As a marketing agency, it's important to have a specialization, a niche. There's thousands of marketing agencies, probably in Los Angeles. Some of them are solopreneurs, but you get the idea. You got to stand out. So we were testing out different verticals. We're getting different referrals. And again, when we were first introduced to this, it was as a Reg D 506C. That is the law that allows for solicitation of accredited investors, high net worth, high household income audiences. Raised $2.83 million dollars on our first campaign. It was a company called Rayton Solar. The founder went on to be a Forbes 30 under 30 for energy right afterwards. It was a marketing statement. It really took their campaign to the next levels, and we were introduced to more issuers from there. I was also getting attention from the reward crowdfunding world. So Kickstarter, Indiegogo type campaigns, definitely games on there. These agencies were reaching out to me and saying, hey, we like what you're doing on the advertising side. Can you run some advertising for us? And they were essentially white labeling us or talking about us as an advertising channel. Worked on a volume, I mean, 40, 50 of those the next year. And then they brought us to the table for our first Reg CF campaign in May of 2016. Reg CF, Regulation Crowdfunding, Title III of the Jobs Act, we had been hearing about for a year or two. It was a bill signed at the White House in 2012, and it took till 2016 to get approved by the SEC. And we worked on campaigns day one there. allowing for both retail and accredited investors. We are now able to target any adult. The minimum investment size being smaller, uh, typically between $100, $500. These days, some of them are $1,000 as the minimum. This is on Reg CF. And at that point, you could raise up to 1.07 million. There's a different filing. Last one I'm going to throw at you here. Regulation A plus. At the time, you could raise up to 50 million. Same deal, retail and or credited, same type of minimums. As of March 2021, Reg CF you could raise up to 5 million. You could do a side-by-side Reg D and have more capital coming in for the accredited investors. Regulation A plus up to 75 million. Last year in 2024, there was 1,408 Reg CFs. Uh, eh, the top 7% hit $1 million or more. The bottom 50% under 114K, the median. I like to say that because I don't want this to sound too amazing. It really is stronger metrics than what most brands experience when going to angel investors and VCs. These success rates are actually stronger. And for many verticals right now, there's a clear contrast. For instance, med tech, a lot more companies are using these types of exemptions, these types of filings. But it also shows there's a $1,500 average investment on Reg CF, about
Hmm.
2,500 on Regulation A plus. So what does that mean? $2,500, you're probably going to need 2,000 investments to hit $5 million. To get 2,000 investments, you're probably going to need 100,000 visits to an offering page, 2% conversion rate. And you have
Hmm.
to determine what those traffic sources look like. So the same thing I was doing with gaming, it's okay, what type of advertising tools can we use here? Need some stable numbers for what's coming through. Can we do with earned media? Press, financial email newsletters, podcasts. How can we get the word out? What can we do with our own content channels and getting people over to that as well? But we have to hit those traffic numbers. The conversion rate is going to affect us if it's not at that 2% level or higher. So we build out these campaigns to get enough traffic there, to have headline worthy announcements on a weekly basis. And to your opening, that these are the algorithms. That these are the points that many issuers are not told when they're working with the lawyer, when they're working with the CPA to get their filings complete, their Form C, their Form 1A, their Form D. They're just told, hey, you could raise 5 million, you could raise 75 million. Here's a few companies that have done it. Last year, there were 5 companies on Reg CF that raised 4.8, let alone $5 million. Uh, this year, there'll be a few more, and we've worked with a good amount of them and worked with a good amount of the ones that are 7 figures. Worked on multiple campaigns this year alone that were over 50 million
Hmm.
each on Regulation A plus. So, have a lot of these, formulas, these backgrounds, but that's really what it's built on. Can talk about some different shortcuts, things along those lines. But when I share this, I'm told, wow, we weren't told any of it, and we've been live for 3 months and only raised 100K or whatnot. So when you have these numbers in mind, when you're working on the strategy that's more of an algorithmic roadmap than just, hey, we're going to use influencers and hopefully we'll hit our goal, you're going to be priming your campaign for a better success rate.
Yeah, there's buyer beware, right? It's interesting. There's many gurus online right now, and some great ones talking about just buying the blue collar businesses. And I recently saw a thread on some guys, kind of busting on that, theory. I've been a part of multiple financing opportunities to acquire these businesses, and it's interesting that first 90 days could be, disastrous or it could be phenomenal. Different nuances happen in those spaces based on the fact that you got employees getting, mad or they want to leave or, clients being stolen in that same 90 days. It's credible. So I really like the framework of crowdfunding. I feel like, for the average person kind of looking at maybe being a little bit intimidated in front of the VC world or the PEs or angel investors and not really having a network. I feel like going to a brand like yourself. Now, I'm sure that you work with bigger opportunities. How did you start to develop that genre of clientele, right? And seeing to yourself like, hey, I'm positioning myself, like you said, very niche. but very dedicated to this space? And how did you start to bring those types of clients that now bring you these success stories?
So it started with the Reg D campaigns, moved to reward crowdfunding, Reg CF, started working on Regulation A plus campaigns later that year. And then as we succeeded on the Regulation A plus campaigns, we started getting calls from the portals. The portals, and that's SEC terminology, are essentially marketplaces for these deals. And you could go on to a site like Start Engine or WeFunder or Republic or Net Capital and see anywhere from 10 to 200 deals live. On a WeFunder, it'll be more like 200. On a Start Engine, it'll be more like 50, 60. They have different approval processes. They have different industries that they focus on. Uh, we ran a successful Regulation A plus campaign. Did over $6 million at the time. That was a big deal. And they said, hey, we have a lot of other issuers, a lot of other companies that could really benefit from what you guys do. They need advertising traffic, they need to hear what to do and get the right recommendations, if not, have the content worked on directly. So we started getting calls right and left. I'd say that's instrumental to the success of an agency is good referral partners. You could even front load that if you're starting an agency. You think about these things afterwards of, oh, if I spoke to me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this is what I would definitely encourage. So we started getting these referral partners in the space. And then with the service providers that were also working on these deals. So I mentioned lawyers, I mentioned CPAs that are doing the filing. There were companies building the videos, there were companies building the digital assets, some of the designs, landing pages, offering pages. Outside of the portals, there's a world of self-publishing. It's typically recommended once you're successful on a portal, but you could actually host one of these deals working with the broker dealer directly on your site. So we got more and more and more introductions. And through doing this, I found the quality of these companies improve as well. So early days, 2016, 2019 even, but really 2016, 2017, there was a stigma of, hey, this is where deals go if they can't get funded offline.
Mm-hmm.
There were aspects of that were true. There were some outliers, and some very successful campaigns that were just choosing this route because they liked it. These exemptions were built to democratize access to capital for founders. You are no longer limited just to your, friends, family, community, first degree network. Also, deal flow. And at the time, a lot of people were talking about, success stories like Facebook. If you buy shares in Facebook in the first year, in the first couple years, when they went public, this is what it would have looked like. And investors who are looking for growth stage companies, high risk, high return section of the portfolio, of course, uh, that has all changed. Do you have companies that are having, trouble getting investments offline? Sure. And I don't think that'll ever change for any channel. I mean, there's, people going after VCs that can't get anyone from their first degree network. So I think investors who need the capital are going to, really seek out every channel. That being said, I work with founders that say, hey, this is the best approach for capital formation. Their notes, they're able to, set their valuation and have those terms consistent across every investor. It's no negotiation. It's the democratization. Everyone works off the same terms. As an issuer, you could have share price increases, but they're available to everyone. Invest by this date. You get this level of bonus shares or this pricing. There's different perks. Hey, you invest at 5,000, 10,000, 25,000. You get this added value. But everyone's operating off those same terms. All the investors, depending on how it's set up, are typically on one seat of the cap table. So they're not really getting control. At the same time, you're bringing in hundreds, in many cases, thousands of investors. I'll see B2B companies with thousands of investors, tens of thousands of investors for some of these companies. One of them over 50,000 investors. You put out an announcement to 50,000 investors, let alone 1,000, 10,000. A percentage of them are going to be sharing all over social media. They're going to be sharing with their friends and family. You're going to have this army of ambassadors behind you, and the marketing value. So if you're running a marketing campaign, we shoot for a 10x return on advertising spend or return on marketing spend, perhaps marketing efficiency ratio. Some companies see much greater returns and cost of capital than that. I could talk about others. We have case studies around where it's 30x higher. Uh, you can use marketing channels to scale into this. You're not limited on, outreach into people's network and getting on calls and so on and so forth. But all that marketing basically comes as added value if you're looking at those type of returns. So then you have a whole marketing campaign that's going out, publishers talking about you, just this big burst of exposure. Some of these companies just have these campaigns running ongoing or every year. Hey, now we're doing another round and at a higher valuation. I've seen companies start 40 million that are now over 40 million valuation that are now over $3.5 billion in their valuation. I mean, there are unicorns in this space and they're five, six, some of them, seven or more rounds in using these vehicles and growing all the way through and taking the capital, reinvesting their teams, their tech, everything that the use of proceeds is going to is allowing for bigger valuations. So I find myself in this space where I have to talk about this every day. I'm explaining to somebody, what regulated investment crowdfunding is, what Regulation D is, and reaching accredited investors. I believe as there's more investor success stories, as there's more liquidity events, this will be part of the mainstream and the primary approach towards capital formation as more and more of our lives are online.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've been in it nearly 10 years, right? Since
Yeah.
16 to coming up on 10 years here.
Yeah.
Interesting journey. I will say I'd love to transition to, how you create revenue, right? In this model, you've been sharing very eloquently how the regulations impact these founders, how they're working with you, right, from a strategic standpoint, how to put themselves in front of investors. But I'm curious, and maybe our Go for Show community is as well. Well, how do you make money? Like, are you partnering with them from a standpoint of rev share on the back end? Are you also sometimes taking equity in the business to maybe be a part of that, growth and opportunity? What are some of the ways that you guys and you created revenue breakpoints within your business?
Sure. So we're not a broker dealer, so we cannot take success fees. Some of those portals that I mentioned have internal marketing agencies and have the ability to take success fees or at least market the campaign and take a success fee of what's raised.
Mm,
Uh, we take monthly agency fees along with a percentage of advertising spend. And if we're hitting those performance benchmarks I mentioned, if we're at a 10x, even if we're at a 3 to 5x on pixel data, clients typically want to scale up. Have campaigns this year that have been over 30x on pixel data. Uh, the pixel is the tracking mechanism for advertising, doesn't bring in everything. So we can get to relatively very large ad spends and pretty quick around the performance. We can continue with those groups uh, to their full goal, then marketing in between rounds, audience building, then in many places, many times playing towards their growth, their go to market, their growth metrics, and then into their next round, and so on and so forth. Uh, so we have been able to grow in that fashion. Uh, Monthly agency fees uh, as a marketing quarterback product, monthly agency fees for content marketing, advertising, outreach, and even lists of services underneath there. It's worked out well for us. We've built our investor audience data at this point as well too. Have a list of over 1.8 million historical, equity crowdfunding, investment crowdfunding investors. So we've structured different data products around that as well. And there again are other ways you could structure it, perhaps, subscription models around data, around different services. There's a few things we're working on right now. Uh, but if we're looking at average revenue for an agency client and the volume of clients that we take on in this space and the specialization around it, it's definitely worked out. And as there are more and more issuers that enter the space and we're at the forefront of it, it'll become even more exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, now do you with the clientele, obviously that's gotten more refined and at a different value for you, right, as an agency. Have you found that the client that is approaching you now is completely different than, 5, 6, 7 years ago, or are you staying kind of in certain percentages in different areas?
So in most cases, yes, it's a completely different client than approached us originally.
Hmm.
There is so much volume that comes through for us as, one of the top, if not the top agencies in the space that still get similar types of founders. You'll get a founder that is more of an engineer, first time CEO. You'll be on a 30-minute call, 25 minutes of it's talking about how amazing their product is. You'll get founders who are more educated in capital raising, in investment crowdfunding, even at this point. And that didn't exist, 5 years ago. Being able to speak with you about uh, these same traffic algorithms and return on ad spend metrics and the top issuers and what publishers feature them, what email newsletters, financial email newsletters, investor email newsletters, uh, promoted them. They'll know some of the conferences, they'll know some of the people directly. They can be very intentional about their timelines. I'll still get the groups that say, hey, we want to raise $5 million. Do we need 2 months or three? And I then have to go into these success rates and talk about how many actually do raise 5 million and ask about their audience size and projectors and things along those lines. So I don't want to make it sound like everyone understands the marketing inside and out, but there are definitely groups that are far more intentional about it these days and have the right understanding of the history of the space thus far.
Well, and you've earned that cachet, right? Obviously, they say success leaves clues, and what you were doing in the gaming world to now transitioning to what you've done with, plenty of real data behind you. I love the fact that you captured all that 1.8 million investors. So I won't put it out there, but I'll ask you, so if you want to share it, like, is there a vertical thought of your own platform since you have this pool investor group? Is there any thoughts about that? And then we'll transition to a couple other questions.
I can tell you we've explored the topic of a data product and having different subscription models around it, uh, becoming the platform, becoming a FINRA regulated portal. You are under a different level of scrutiny and regulation, and really have to have the right, Series 7 team members on board to really understand securities law to ensure everything's done correctly. Uh, you're really set up to make sure that the issuers are running clean campaigns, which is something everyone wants, of course. We want to make sure there's not bad actors in the space. Uh, the, the vertical has a very good record. It's much different even than a Kickstarter, Indiegogo type of environment where there are a lot of cases of people not being honest on the platforms because of these filings and what you have to do with the SEC. It's been a different type of landscape. Um, Furthermore, there's been about 7,000 companies that have used Reg CF to date, and under 10%, let's call it around 10%, have gone under, which since 2016, I think is a very, very loud statement. I first learned, in the world of entrepreneurship, 90% of companies don't make it through their first year. To hear that only 10% over the past, 9+ years have gone under is a big deal. And that more of them have actually had exits. Uh, Including IPOs in there. There's a website called King's Crowd, and you could actually track all this. You could see the exits, you could see the failures if anyone's tuned in and wondering. You could see all of the successes. You could reference these percentages that I'm talking about. I'm not just making them up. You could see everything for live and historical Reg CF and Regulation A plus campaigns, but definitely pay attention to the exits and failures. So I've been very happy with the quality of companies coming out here. And yeah, looking forward to see where it goes from here. The portal conversation, we've been approached with different partnerships. Broker dealers have talked to us, so it's always something I'm considering. But we have a lot of flexibility with what we're doing right now, and can work on campaigns that are live on any portal. And there's over 70 FINRA regulated portals at the moment. So if we were to, let's say, go in-house at one or create our own, we'd really just be working on those where now we can be building more data and testing it across campaigns on a variety of different marketplaces.
No, I think you answered your own question or my own question, right? So, awesome stuff. Well, I appreciate the candidness on that, and it really kind of shares a template of a business model, right? You've created such a great niche. Your value proposition is so strong in the marketplace. You've proven and have real results, as the kids say. You have receipts nowadays. It's really awesome to see. So go to CEO channel. Check out every aspect of what Jason has done, and as we finish the interview, think about these things. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur, if you're looking to raise capital, if your network is not your net worth right now, look at different ways this crowdfunding process and the way that Jason and his team has really developed it is next level outstanding. So awesome, Jason. Well, look, we love to end with CEO. So client experience. E is for engagement. So C is client experience, E is for engagement, and O is for operational excellence. And I'll kind of guide you through here. But if you take a minute or two to describe from your perspective what a client should expect doing business with your team, what does that look like from a value proposition?
Sure, sure. We look to be the marketing quarterback. We've been down this path. We know what's coming ahead. We can't, guarantee we're going to get to those, end zones at 100% levels, but can work with the group to make sure that they have the best shot towards success they can get. And that's what that experience should reflect of, stories, similar types of companies when there's these situations, what we should be testing out, ideas towards different marketing strategies, and within those strategies, tactics around channels, within the channels, optimizations around audiences, creatives, the visuals, the messaging, and funnels that we're taking them down to convert those audiences. So being able to, hear a lot of numbers. The only way to measure is with numbers. It gets to me when I hear broad statements. So when I hear ranges, and you could probably tell by my storyline and how I break this stuff down. But the only way to measure is with numbers. I want to be able to answer with those ranges with clients. They'll be working with some of these strategists that uh, raised millions for the top campaigns this year and high volumes of these campaigns to date, utilizing our audience database, but should feel like they're locking arms with us and we're their investor marketing team.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate that. And the next one is E for engagement. When you think about the portals you work with, right? The relationships you built, the vendors you have to use, the we didn't get too much into, how you built out your team and if it's independent contractor, if it's W-2 employees, but from a perspective of engagement, are you a guy that likes to lead from the front with, personal touches? Are you sending out cards? Are you doing retreats? Are you doing, now holiday season type stuff? What is the way that Jason Fishman and your leadership style is when you think about engagement?
within among the team.
The team, vendors, people that you work with, clients. I always like to get the perspective of how does the CEO founder think about their engagement? How do they stay connected?
Well, funny looking back into the beginning and looking at all the different chapters over the past, 10 plus years here. There was a big shift during COVID, of course, because before that we were in person every day, moving, somewhat overnight to digital.
Mhm.
We had to, really figure out what do we look like as a digital company. And I felt leadership had to take a different form there, where it was very easy, at least for me, to feel out, the energy levels of my team members, um, you know, team of 20 people, not, 200, 2,000, anything like that. But we have different times on the calendar to do that. So our account director has check-ins with account managers every morning. I then speak with the account director. We have a team meeting every morning, and I'm able to share what I'm hearing outside of our day-to-day work among the industry, strategic partnerships, about issuers, about us, about the industry, marketing channels, and provide narrative, provide perspective. So whether there's good information coming out, there's bad information, there's stuff that is working outside of what we're doing. Industry's slow. I'm able to really provide perspective and allow the team to kind of project into that. I then have department head meetings on Mondays. I have a series of different meetings with whiteboard session. I mentioned we're in person on Wednesdays for the majority of the team and cycling in different departments each week. And we do a lunch as kind of a culture event, if you will. Often something after work, do a whiteboard meeting, so we're doing something productively. Uh, we work off project management systems, we work off real-time communication channels. On top of all that, I still try to check in and make calls in addition to that. And we treat our own brand as a marketing client. We have a client meeting there, have a daily account manager meeting. I try to do this so what I'm talking about externally is consistent with what's happening internally. I'm able to hear my team repeat many of the same things that I say, as well as the same approaches for optimization, how to manage something, how to manage to a point of effectiveness is a very big deal. Breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. We're going to experience them with every client at some point in a service-based industry. So if we're able to shine there, we're going to have stronger client relationships. If we allow things to fall apart there, we're just another agency that gets a bad reputation for not doing what they say or whatever it may be. I think that's what a lot of those holes are for other agencies. So I try to go to these extra lengths, not just working on the business, but connecting with the team members working in it on a day-to-day basis, so that there are similarities, not just with their standard operating procedures and how I would approach these accounts if I was doing every piece of it myself, uh, and how my team is doing it and how we're able to take on more volume accordingly.
I love it. Yeah. And well, you said a great point right at the end there. In order to build a business and get to that quadrant from becoming a employee trading hours for dollars, independent contractor just doing it all yourself, to a business owner and an investor, you have to build a team. You have to build, the strength behind you and or with you. So the last one is operational excellence. You touched on it very briefly, but what are the tools that you guys are using, and have they changed? If you don't mind giving us maybe a minute long of like, hey, we're using Monday, or I'm just giving an example, right? What are the tools that you're using in the agency that has really helped over the years?
We are using Monday. That was a
Oh,
good guess. That's our project management board. We also use it as a CRM. We've tested many others, but have found benefits by using the same system. We use Klaviyo for email and marketing automation. Uh, I couldn't even tell you how many different AI tools we have these days. I see a new one added all the time, but have a list of different design programs and platforms that I'll just scratch the surface on. That website that I mentioned, King's Crowd, where you're able to see all of the data from Reg CF and Regulation A Plus campaigns, they put out a Saturday report. I build my own Monday report on Monday morning using that data and put it into a little slide deck and walk through it with my team and look at how each portal is performing, the top issuers. We'll do a marketing audit of one of those issuers. On the marketing audit, we'll look at traffic and sources with similar web. We use SpyFu for the search data and looking at the search engines. I'll look at a platform called Mild to see the email newsletters that those competitors are using, where they're appearing, where their investments being promoted. I'll look at Facebook ads library. You just have to Google Facebook ads library, and you could see the ads that anyone who is running an advertisement on Facebook has live today. So we'll want to do competitor audit of their social ads as well as their search ads. As I mentioned, I'll go on to Google News. There's other tools I look at to see influencer posts and news events, but those are some ones everyone can use. Uh, I'll look at the social platforms firsthand too, so I can see the days and times of week and types of content that are getting the most engagement. So I'll do an audit every week of one of these issuers that we're not working on. Uh, Success leaves clues is something I say a lot. I was happy to hear you mention that earlier as well. So that's why I tell the team and look at it from there. We use Slack for daily communications. We have an advertising dashboard built for us through What a Graph. We have a variety of different data management tools and things that we use to make our advertising campaigns more impactful, more effective. Uh, yeah, that's a good list right there for people to work off of. Uh, yeah,
awesome. Awesome. Well, Go for CEO community, I hope you have really enjoyed this conversation. Jason brings a ton of wisdom and an industry that we really haven't covered, crowdfunding and this area of investing and how to bring the expertise in marketing and advertising to that and have a partner to deliver on those opportunities for you to be able to launch your business, right? So, Jason, share with us, how can people get a hold of you or direct them to the best teammate to get a hold of you if they have enjoyed this conversation and want to start to explore how you guys can help them.
sure. You can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, Jason Fishman, Los Angeles. You'll see me on there. You could reach out to my team and I on digitalnicheagency.com. Also, check out our YouTube channel. Have the playlist for my podcast on there. We look to get out a weekly episode. We also do a monthly webinar, each one with its own educational deck and topic. Uh, how to reach investors through the holidays. Would definitely check out. And yeah, so that's youtube.com/ at digital niche agency. Check us out there as well.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jason, for coming on. We look forward to maybe in the future having you back on and seeing the 10 plus years going into this space and what the industry has evolved in over the time and regulations and things that you've been able to do to impact this world. So thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me, John. It was a blast.